for you and for this beautiful second day of the Heal and Evolve Summit. So I
How's it going?
it's really wonderful. Yesterday we had really beautiful big session and a lot of big nice comments. So yeah, I'm very happy. And today will be even better because we're gonna have another four amazing talks, and I'm very grateful and honored to have here Jeff Levin from Life Alignment as the first speaker today. So I would love to just wait another 1 or 2 minutes because people are still joining so that they won't miss the first part. But then I will leave you and I will be coming back after when you have closed your talk, and then we can still see whether we have some questions in the chat. So everyone who's listening, welcome, and you really use the chat if you have questions, and we try to answer them. If we cannot answer them all during the talk or after the talk, then we will definitely also send out some answers to those questions who are relevant for everyone. So please feel courageous enough to put your questions into the chat. And also, if you have some comments, we're always happy to have some interaction. These webinars for the speakers are a bit weird because we can only see each other as a panelist, and then we don't see who's actually here. We would love to see all your faces, but then it would be just overblowing. That's why we chose this technology. So yeah, welcome, Jeff. It's really beautiful to see you again after our first interview we had. And I hope you're doing well. You're in South Africa, I assume.
In South Africa, in the Cape, beautiful Cape.
Amazing, amazing. So it's
Thank
getting
you.
it's getting springtime. It's becoming spring, and I think the sun is coming out more and more here today in the Black Forest in Germany. It's quite stormy and windy, and we can fall see coming. So yeah, let's see. We have a lot of South African friends in here. I can see in the participants chat, but I can also see a lot of Germans. So I think we're really representing the northern and the southern hemisphere quite well today.
Mm.
Oh yeah. Welcome. I would just hand it over to you, and if there's anything I can assist with during it, if you want to answer questions in between or after, let me know. I'm gonna be in the background, but I'll hand over the mic, or I give you the stage now.
Thank you, Danny. And it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here with this community that I feel coming through the screen and unseen. Um, and in Life Alignment, I'll tell you a little bit about the background, but that's our constant aspiration, is to create a community of like-minded people, but not just like-minded people, but high-frequency community that can co-create together, because it is a co-creation and a cooperation that we have with the whole universe. We all realize, of course, that we are interconnected with all that is. So just to say a few words about life alignment, I would say I received or downloaded life alignment, which is a system, an energetic system of healing and transformation at a personal, collective, and of course, global level. Our deepest intention is always to work with the collective unconsciousness. And we recognize that we cannot awaken our spiritual essence with the mind. We have to go beyond the mind. And on top of that, we have to release so much of our past that we hold on to and is held in our body. So life alignment is a system that helps to identify the core programs and patterns that we've come in with from a past time, from our genetics, from our collective field, families and countries and so on. We have to release those to create space for us to come into the stillness and open ourselves to a divine source. And that divine source has to have space, has to find space in us, because we come in an open way, empty, really, in many ways, so that we can truly surrender to Source. And we cannot do this, as I said, with the analytical mind, because the analytical mind most of the time is part of the problem. It's part of the blockage. So we choose to raise our frequency to another level for us to be able to open to, align with, and surrender to the many, many beautiful beings and teachers that are providing intercession at these very difficult times. And they are part of our family. Many of us are not fully aware because we might be stuck in the mind. But as we open, as I'm hoping we will do that today, I'm using some of our technology. We have what is called vortex technology, and a particular form that I've chosen, not I chose, but there was a higher impulse to choose the pattern of peace and tranquility, because we cannot solve the problems in the 3D material universe, certainly not with our mind. We have to find a transcendent place where we can abide in another dimension and come to a place of peace and tranquility in ourselves, accepting all that is happening in the chaotic world around us. The world today is so chaotic, so much violence. And if we become embroiled in that, entangled in that, we are held down. Our frequency is held down in that particular dimension. So I'm sure we're all aware that the whole planet is transcending, is ascending to a higher dimension. They say that we're moving as a planet and as a humankind into the fifth dimension. And that is the place we venture towards, so that we can find our own bubble of reality where all is well. And at that dimension, really, all is well. And there is peace, there is acceptance of what is, and not only with at a mental level, but acceptance with compassion, with love, with kindness of all that is happening around us. So today I'd love to share in a space where we can show up at a different dimension and receive the transmission that is happening. So my words are really just a cover-up, really, for the real transmission of peace and tranquility. So I'd like you to take a few moments and just be still and begin to sense that you are not alone, that there is a benevolent force of love, of power, of light that is streaming down towards us, hoping to find a place within us that can truly surrender and participate, co-create with the energies that are coming down at this time. The more chaos there is in the world, the more there is interconnection with these forces. They come in to support us, to hold us, to love us. And if we can just take these few moments before we go into a meditative process, while we're in a meditative process, to just receive the transmission of what is coming through. Let us focus on our breath. We know the breath is the most powerful conscious element that we have control over, that helps to awaken, helps to raise our frequency, helps to align us with the essence of who we really are. So let's breathe into it, and with the in-breath, let us receive the energy that is surrounding us and flowing into our being. So if we can put our mind, our analytical mind aside and just truly let go of the world around us, our environment, the chaos, and surrender to the calling that we have to come into a true state of peace, tranquility, compassion, acceptance, and love. And you may find that your bodies are beginning to vibrate to this frequency. And as we breathe out, let us breathe out the tension, the stress that we've held, so that we are an open receptacle, a receiver. And if you can allow the out breath to be a little longer than the in breath, which activates the vagus nerve and takes us into a deeper state of stillness. I can't see you visibly, but I'm sure you beginning to feel that your bodies and your mind are slowing down. And let us stay in touch with our bodies. Feel the earth below our feet. Mother Earth, that is one of the beings that support our lives, support all of humanity at this time. And so as you breathe out through the base chakra, let us send out roots into the earth, which provide a sense of certainty, of security, strength and stability, connecting into our roots. And through the base chakra, we can absorb that energy into our body. That brings a sense of calm at the Schumann resonance, which is the resonance of alpha. And through our crown chakras, let us open to the flow, the current of love that pours into our being and meets the earth energy around the solar plexus, igniting like an inner sun that permeates our whole body and out beyond our body into the field around us. So we find ourselves surrounded by a field of light. And even though we may not see each other, we know that we are interconnected, one with each other merging as one unified field. And it is our interconnectedness, not at the mental level, but through the heart and through the power of love, that binds us together. And how wonderful it is to allow ourselves to let go to this greater field of light and love, that we can function as one body whose deepest desire and aspirations and intentions are to be and abide in this transcendent frequency that transcends the mind. We find that the mind is devoid of any agendas, of judgment, of wants, desires. We find ourselves fully in this moment. So the past and the future seem to come together in this moment. It is all one continuum. And we find ourselves in a state of being, nothing to achieve, no effort, just to allow ourselves to breathe, let go, and surrender. And we find that our past histories, all the stuff we've accumulated over the years, the stresses, the traumas, tend to dissolve in this field of love. They just do not show up because we have transcended that level of attachment, of entanglement. We find ourselves choosing to stay in a bubble of reality where there is just peace and calm and tranquility and absolute acceptance of all that is occurring at this time, which intellectually we may know that is, we're moving through a transformational process. And sometimes we know in our own lives that the more difficult the situation is, the more growth that it has potential to evoke. And so we find ourselves in a divine consciousness, transcending human nature. We are human, but we have the ability to choose to live at this level. And when we drop down into the chaos at times, we all do that, we know that we can reconnect because we are not doing it alone. So if you can be open to the field of energy that is holding you now, that is allowing you to feel safe, free, empowered, and truly in a state of peace and calm, which is not in denial. It's not putting our head in the sand. It is a reality that we can live in and yet be in the earth. Play out the roles that we have to play in the earth in the 3D dimension. But the observer, which is in a higher dimension, can see all of that in perspective. So as we observe from that perspective, we can stay neutral, disconnected, detached, and stay in this beautiful alignment. We've been involved in life alignment in doing this with a collective group of practitioners and teachers from all around the world for the last 35 years. And it does take practice. But it's a muscle that is worthy of developing because it brings so much fulfillment and joy and freedom from this turbulent, chaotic world, which has always been that way, and it probably always will. As we accept it and accept who we truly are, nothing can deter us from this beautiful transcendent space. I'm sure by now you'll find your minds very still. The body is still, the breathing, almost as if there's no need to breathe. And we may not see each other, I certainly can't see you, but we know that we are bound together by the power of love, which is the greatest healer of all. So I am deeply thankful. And if we can at this particular moment just feel in the heart a sense of gratitude for each other, for you, Dannie, bringing this all together. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And this sense of gratitude expands our field and allows more light to shine. So I don't know if at this stage you have any questions, or let's stay in this place throughout today and the days ahead.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I right now cannot see any open questions. I feel that everyone was really deeply going into this practice with you. So maybe the people still need a moment to come back into their minds to formulate any question.
I'm hoping that they cannot see
Yes,
the stage, that they are so
definitely.
still.
Yeah, it was beautiful because I even had to arrange a few things and I could even feel the invitation and to go with, go along with it and dive into it. So thank you so much. Um, I would love to raise a question for the audience because I can imagine that you have some fans here already, probably, who came to see you, who have been maybe working with your life alignment, but I'm very sure that there's also new people and they might be interested. I already put in the chat the links to your website and also to your socials so they can follow along. But maybe you can share that the next workshop or the next training or whatever you have in mind, how people can join you in live alignment. You said in the beginning it's a global community, and I know that you're traveling and you have been in Germany just a few months ago. A friend of mine, she's also joining. She was with you, and also I know that you're coming again to South Africa in February. You have a training, so maybe you want to share a little bit about that just shortly before we invite then also Brigitte to come in.
You know, my mind is in a state right now that I cannot think of dates and times. I'm in this beautiful space. I can check my
No,
calendar.
you don't have to. I'm happy to also share that later.
If
And
you can share that later,
yes,
that would be
yes,
great.
that's really no problem.
So I'm trying to be fully in the moment.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So you said maybe one more question then from my time. You said, this practice also, um, I don't want to say needs, but maybe invites everyone also to some discipline and to some practice because it's a state of being that we receive, that we perceive, or that we get into more and more the more practice we have with it. So, what do you feel people will receive a beautiful demo of you where you also show or where you showcase a session of live alignment? So, this beautiful practice we just did, what do you feel like when people dive into it? Very often we hear these questions like, how often do I have to practice? Is once a week enough? Are you sitting every day? Maybe you can share something about your practice or what you would recommend your students.
You know, the interesting thing is that our main practice is giving what we call balances to other people. Because what that does, you come into the zone where you are detached from outcome. Your mind is out of the way. It has no agendas. You're just open and surrendered. And all our practitioners say, listen, I am in this most transcendent, beautiful state when I'm working, because that's the way the system works and it activates our intuition. But then 5 minutes later, we're doing the dishes and we're minding taking the dogs for a walk and feeding the family, and we lose it. So as I said, it's a muscle. Now, naturally, meditation is always a powerful practice, but the practice is coming into the presence of a magnificent field of energy that is supporting us. And the mind, the ego mind, tends to keep us separate, doesn't like us to ascend to those frequencies because it wants to control. So we learn to transcend the ego so that the ego comes into a subordinate place to spirit. And it does. When it sees that there is this frequency, there's no way that it can function. And so
Mm,
it's keeping the ego tamed and in its right place does take a certain attitude of absolute conviction. And that's our practice. If someone's feeling bad, they go and find somebody in the street, they pay them, put them on a table, give them a session.
mm,
I'm joking, but that's
yeah,
the sort of feeling. It is a beautiful practice because you come into a unified field
mm,
that is shifting,
mm,
transforming human consciousness into something so magnificent. Now,
beautiful.
not everyone can do that because if you're not a life alignment practitioner, but I think the principle applies to all of us, that we can all do that. And it is not necessarily sitting. I don't necessarily sit. I do it standing, walking, doing. So I'm not in doing mode. I'm in being mode while I'm doing,
Mm,
allowing the creative juices to move. And creativity and nature, of course, are phenomenal tools. So
mm,
going out into nature and communing with plants and trees and animals is wonderful. And so they're wonderful tools around us that remind us constantly of who we are. We need to listen and just be still and truly connect with the frequencies around us. And it's just mindfulness. It's doing everything in a state of mindfulness, eating, bathing, sleeping, walking. And it's a state of equanimity that nothing can throw you out. So if you're going for a walk, connect with the insects, with the earth, with the flowers, the trees, and the clouds. And it's just becoming conscious, waking up. So if we use every opportunity to wake up,
Beautiful.
because I can give you tons of practices, but if you're doing it half unconscious, I mean, what's it going to do? It's
Right.
waking up to the reality of who we are and what life is all about. Because life is so abundant with reminders and teachers in the plants and the animals and the birds and everything.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much for this, Jeff. And it was a perfect bridge. I didn't mention our theme of the day, frequency activation. So I feel that everyone who has already joined has now felt what that really means with your guidance in the beginning of today. So
Right.
thank you so much for being here. We're going to share all the gifts and the links in an email later today. And if there's any questions, I will come back to Maggie and speak to her.
Yeah.
So thank you so
Better
much for joining.
tell you the dates and the workshops.
Yes. Thank you
I
so, so much, Jeff, and have a lovely evening.
and I do see another face, Brigitte.
Yes, yes, she's being there. She's talking now. Her talk is coming up now. So she's the next one, also speaking about frequency. So it's a beautiful, beautiful alignment already in this
Lovely segue into that. So thank you, Brigitte, for continuing the process.
day. Thank you so much for being with us. Yeah, and hello and welcome, Brigitte. It's so nice to see you here. You can open your microphone if you want. It's still muted, so we can hear your voice.
Hi, thank you,
Lovely.
Jeff. Thank you, Danny.
Can I stay tuned? Is it all right? Yeah.
You can stay if you want to. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna dive right into Brigitte's talk, and I'm really, really, really glad that you're here, Brigitte. And I don't even know where you are right now on the planet because I saw you in South Africa, then I know you were in Europe. I don't know whether you're back in South Africa or you're still in Europe.
I'm
Some
still in Europe, yes.
still in Europe. So yeah, beautiful. And I hope we're gonna see each other in South Africa again when we both are down there again.
Yes,
So yeah, it's lovely that you could take the time, and I'm very much aware of the beautiful container that you're holding right now because I'm also part of your beautiful temple course right now, and yeah, it's just a beautiful gift for me, and I can assume for many who are here and can join this talk now to have you. I don't even want to share a lot more words. I would love just to maybe I share a few sentences or maybe just two or three for about Laudima because I didn't do that in the beginning because it still had some technical things. But everyone who was listening from the beginning to Jeff has heard him say that he and Life Alignment specifically, they also intend to create a global family, a global community. And that's also what I feel is very true for Brigitte. It's very true for Laulima. So we all share this. And I think that's the reason why we all came together, that we feel in this time it's so important to come together and share spaces, whether physical or online, where we feel that we together can rise, where we feel more that we are one already, right? And that we share this consciousness that Jeff just led us into beautiful practice. And in La Lima, it's the same. La Lima is a home for many different practitioners, like the ones you're seeing in this beautiful summit. Everyone said yes immediately, and they will all share also other offerings and gifts for all of you. There's an online community where hopefully also for some sessions others will come join. So it's really a global network, a global community that's starting to grow and that's supporting as well the practitioners to really have a place where they can show their beautiful modalities and their gifts and their wisdom, but also for people who are seeking to find exactly what's resonating. And you can come wherever you are, however you feel at that day, and you're always welcome to join. So I feel that's enough said for La Lima and also for you beautiful communities. And I will now hand over to you because you can share a lot more about that better than me. So thank you again for being here today. And yeah, enjoy. I will ask everyone who has a question, they can put it in the Q&A and I'm happy to read it later to you. So if there's anything I can't answer, we maybe can do that later together. Thank you for
Beautiful.
being here.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, everybody who is on the call. My name is Brigitte, and essentially, on our spiritual journey, we're moving through identities and the dropping of those identities. Yet, based on the fact that we're in an earth body having a human experience, sometimes that identity, and we may call it the ego, is kind of keeping things together. At some sort of level or some road on our spiritual path, we start to adopt different teachings. And so today I'm going to be really speaking about what we call a Krystic grid and how to space hold within what we call this Krystic grid. Krystic is alluding to the frequency or the concept of Christ consciousness. So how do we hold a Christ consciousness grid as facilitators, as practitioners, and as beings? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be on some sort of spiritual journey as a practitioner to hold a Christ consciousness frequency or grid. So the other part of this, so I spoke to identities, is that often I am a very big trigger point. So please just, if anything is coming up, write it down. Like we said, you're welcome to ask some questions. And essentially how I'm going to present this particular talk is what we need to be aware of in order to get to this grid system. So, how do we hold a Krystic grid, and what is this? Essentially, it's the reclamation of the order of the Christ. And so I spoke to this identity level, and essentially for me at the moment, I'm working with what we call the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister. And what this does is move us through a process of looking at the genesis of our creation, the genesis of our human seeding. So for me specifically, I'm working with this Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister. And so I'm in a reclamation process of that Christ consciousness aspect of myself through this identity layer, we could call it. And so how do we hold these grids? And this is what I'm going to go through now. And it's what we call working through the overlays. So we've got to kind of find what we want to eliminate or work through. And these topics may be familiar to you, but the language may be a bit different, bearing in mind that all language holds frequency. And so again, just bear with me. The document that I'm working off at the moment, I'm also happy to share with Danny and everybody in the email, just as a point-by-point aspect to help you move through this because we have a very short time. So working through the overlays, as I'm sure all of us know that everything is frequency, everything is energy. So we have certain frequency overlays or frequency fences that we need to move through in order to get and grasp and reach this Christ consciousness grid, right? And so we have technological and environmental overlays. These would be frequency fields, our satellites, our Wi-Fi's, the things that we know. Artificial magnetic fields, weather modifications, AI broadcast signals. So essentially everything that is synthetic as a code in our universal structure. And what's very important is distortions in sound and voice tone, because the Christ consciousness code, or that which we are seeking, is really the authentic being. It is the truth of what you are at any point in time. And I'd like to sorry, I was just reading the chat. I'd like to just encourage that this is not about perfectionism. Christ consciousness is not about perfectionism, but it's about authentic expression, and it's about the feeling body, what you are feeling at any point in time. And so we could allude to that as our shadow work. The other things that we need to move through in terms of overlays are collective beliefs, right? So particularly around the Christ theme or the Christos theme, we have distortions around the Christ drama, our religious programming, savior complexes, and antichrist trauma imprints. We also have New Age overlays, which is going to become very, very hot topic in our now to future timeline. So we're looking at Ascended Master aspects, archangelic aspects, any sort of channeling interference, ET interference, and things like that. From my perspective within these teachings, we would see these as New Age overlays, which we've got to move through. And these are big constructs to move through. And I know this because I've been through it, you know, through 13 years of doing medicine work and healing work and deep trauma work. There have been certain constructs, therefore creation stories that I've worked with that are no longer resonant to me now and no longer relevant. So part of these are what I'm mentioning. And then we've also got our doubt systems, our own personal doubt systems in our own core. So many of us would know this as imposter syndrome. So we work through certain things and we're attracted to certain coursework, whether it's Reiki, hypnosis, whatever it is. And we drop an identity, we move to the new layer, and then we're like, I don't know if I can do this. I've got total imposter syndrome. And so when we're talking about Christ consciousness, it's a very, very deep, weighted, heavy, it can be a heavy subject matter, because what we're doing is identifying in this process, at this point, at this level of consciousness, at this particular now moment, as the authority of the Christ, that which we are presenting and representing as eternal life currents, organic life currents. And from the persecution wound, if we've still got persecution wound overlays, so this is another overlay that we've got to move through, we might feel very, very, attacked by the outside perception of what's coming back at us, because we've got to move through these overlays. Because to say you are now the authority of the Christ working with a Melchizedek cloister DNA aspect of yourself is quite a grand statement. It is a very, very grand statement. So these are a couple of the things that we'll go through as well, or that you'll have to go through. Then we've got what we call fallen architecture and grid distortions. So this gets very, just hold on to your seat, guys, because those of you who are holding space, and we've all been through it, and you still might be in some of these. And please remember, there's no right or wrong. I'm just merely discussing a form of creation mechanics that I am working with at the moment. And so when we speak to fallen architectures or distorted architectures, particularly within healing work and particularly within shamanic work, we've got moon ceremonies going on. We've got us sort of calling in the cardinal directions of north, south, east, west, which would, we've got astrological things that we are connecting to in terms of tropical astrology versus sidereal astrology. We've got the fallen architecture of our language itself, the Tower of Babel, right? We've got the Akashic records versus the Akasha. So many spiritual people are getting this information from what we call the Akashic records. I'll give a little bit more info now. I'm just going through the list. We've got ley line hijacking. So we've got these sacred sites all around the world, yet our planetary system is still in deep levels of war. It is in deep levels of persecution. It is in deep levels of chaos, actually. So we've got ley line hijacks, which we call reversal networks or phantom black hole matrices. We've got inorganic sacred geometries that are also floating around. So we've got the flower of life versus this thing versus that thing versus that thing. So we know that the structure based on frequency is very much held in the symbology of what is representative out there in our physical manifest realms. It goes a little deeper it obviously goes deeper. It always goes deeper in the rabbit hole. But these are some of the sort of architectural overlays, fallen architectures that we have to move through as well. And just a simple one for me is, it's right here in our reality right now, is we've got AI simulation overlays. Okay, that's a very simple one. If I were to mention the moon again, this could be very touchy, particularly for feminine groups that do a lot of full moon and new moon rituals. Today is a new moon. I don't do any moon, moon worship or anything like that. And again, this is deeply, deeply personal as we move through these overlay systems. Then we've got genetic and soul level overlays. So we call it a fallen DNA template, okay? So essentially, if we look at the fractured nature or the fractal nature within the one, we're kind of seeking these parts of ourselves through time, through space, through dimensionalized layers, and we're integrating. So I opened this with saying we're moving through many identities and then dropping those identities. So we have the persona coming into the God self, okay? And from the persona to the God self, we've got to move through these soul experiences that are our fallen DNA templates. So when you notice in your life where you've had moments where you're just making terrible choices, or you're meeting the people that are reflecting back at you very draconian aspects, very reptilian aspects of yourself, you can then see, this is the DNA aspect that I am integrating at this point in time and that I'm looking to heal. So this would speak to fallen DNA templates, which on our spiritual journey, as I said, we're moving through the dropping of identities and the healing of the DNA structures. We've then, of course, got our ancestral trauma, which is more bloodline aspects. And then we've got our cosmic traumas, which feel like they are never, ever, ever ending, all right? And again, this is really just speaking to soul fragmentation, which if we go back to this particular body of work, which is the freedom teachings, we'll look at the kind of downfall of Tara, the explosion of Tara, and Tara would have been fifth dimensional earth. And so we are the earth body as well. There is no separation. So we're grabbing these pieces and we're bringing it back together into this oneness. And this is part of that Krystic grid that we're trying to restructure into organic timelines. Then, of course, we've got psychological and emotional overlays, right? False responsibility and savior programming is a very, very big one, particularly among spiritual communities. This would be very like tyrannical priestess programming, or even very much, where we've got Jesus as the only savior of the entire planetary system. These are all sort of false responsibilities, or it's got to come from me, we're saving the earth. And then again, this is an imposter syndrome from a different perspective. We've also got creation story distortion. So where is our origin? What is our origin? And we can loop around these stories forever and ever and ever, until we find what is resonant to us. And this is why I say in the beginning, when we are saying we're part of this Christ lineage of Christ consciousness, it's quite a big statement. It's a very, very big statement. And to hold that and to embody that as if it is having done the work to move through that level of overlay with understanding how you perceive your reality as well. Then we've got obviously body and elemental overlays. So we've got the toxins, we've got heavy metals, we've got food systems and GMO, we've got hormonal manipulation, fluoridization of the water. Our elemental kingdoms have been hijacked, etc., etc. So these are kind of the overlays that we need to work through in order to come to a space holding where you as an individual are holding a resonant field of that which we call the Krystic grid. So these are some of the overlays. So that's one part of it, right? We then can say on a very more creational mechanic perspective or quantum physics perspective that we have a 15th dimensional time matrix. Each of these 15th dimensions are bandwidth into three dimensions each. So we have 5 harmonic universes. And essentially, once we are reaching dimensions 9, 10, 11, and 12, we're starting to work with this Christos frequency. Now, this is very, very powerful to look at as it feeds the mental body, but it can totally overwhelm people where you start talking about dimensionalized layers, dimensions 12, but we're speaking about the law of one. So Is there one dimension? Are there 15 dimensions? Will I ever reach that dimension? If I don't reach that dimension, will I never be able to feel Christ consciousness, right? And so I mention this because it's very important to stay embodied and empowered with your own belief systems, right? And so again, I'm merely presenting to you different layers and aspects of what this Christ grid could mean, because we have those of us as souls that are very much technicians. We are architects, and we're restructuring in our 5D timeline stories, which would create separation. We're structuring the new earth, all right? But within the law of one, there is no new, there is no old. It's only now. There's only one. It always is. It always was, and it will forever be. So we really, really have to look at our belief systems, and this is also what today's talk is about: is what is the Christ to you? Because if we say from an elementary level, if we're teaching Christ consciousness to a group of children, are we going to begin presenting quantum mechanics to them? Although possibly the new starseeds coming in could teach us a few things, because our physics is probably very, very outdated. But are we going to teach them quantum physics material through structures, mathematics, sacred geometries? Or are we going to say the Christ is the values and attitudes of mastery that speak to kindness, that speak to grace, that speak to presence and listening, that speak to being helpful, that speak to having beautiful boundaries, open and loving? You know, this is also the Christ. If the the banker down the road is a banker, and we shun him because he is a 3D banker, but he's holding these attributes of the Christ. Just because he's never done a breath work or a plant medicine ceremony or sits in meditation, does he not have possibility to hold Christ consciousness? So we've really got to start asking ourselves these questions. And again, this is where the identities come in. What is the identity you're working with at any point in time? And are you aware that it's just an exploratory road, a journey for you at that point in time to hold no attachment to, but to say, wow, what a fascinating journey, what a fascinating bit of information. So I've also written here, a lot of people in the spiritual community will say Earth is a prison planet. But what if we were to say Earth was not a prison, but a language, rather? So I've spoken to one of the overlays being the Tower of Babel, right? And within our quantum mechanics and our physics aspects of how we learn about the Krystic grids, we come to a restructuring of language where each of the dimensionalized layers within what we call the Kathara grid, and the Kathara grid is what we call the universal divine blueprint. So this would be speaking to the 12-point tree of life, not the Kabbalah tree of life, but the 12-point tree of life. Each of these has a tonal, electrotonal kind of mathematical equation, if you want to call it that, that speaks to a language. That language within these teachings is called Anuhasi. And so if we were to restructure our language, we would begin to recode the planetary system through electrotonal frequencies. And as I've alluded to, this is all energy, it's all frequency. So if we change our language modeling, which is a fascinating theme since we've got AI at the moment as large language models, we can begin to restructure the DNA within and restructure that without, because it's all one. So hold on one second. Yeah, I don't know how long I've been going for, because I know I can there's any kind of
I'm muted, that's why I can't reply, by the way. You still have 7 minutes at least to
okay,
go.
beautiful. Yeah, so I mean, speaking to the Krystic grid, for me, perhaps going into personal experience would be helpful here, because we can speak around, theory all we want, but what is my personal experience? How do I feel that I'm holding Christ frequency? One, it is extreme amounts of shadow work because I've got to go through that imposter syndrome. I've got to go through all the overlays of persecution, of being the righteousness code, because this also comes in when people will say, well, how can you be this thing? How can you be part of the Melchizedek lineage? Well, maybe I'm not, but am I doing the best to explore this aspect of creation at this point in time and honor it and see it as sacred service? Well, then can I really go wrong whether I am that thing or I'm not that thing? It's not about righteousness, but it's about honor and being present in that which you are exploring with your consciousness at any point in time. And for me, what I've noticed, particularly with my light language, is because light language can also be distorted. It can also be distorted because there's so many systems, there's so many mathematical programs, there's so many large language models that we're working through. So it depends which creation story you are working with. But for me, I've really noticed that my light language is very aligned to this, what we call this 15th dimensional time matrix and the Anuhasi language. And it's not because I've read it, it'll come through and I will notice certain frequencies through the language that are being repeated. And then I'll go and do my homework and say, hey, I keep repeating this word. So Kathara is something that I'm very au fait with. It's very much restructuring those organic grid systems within me. And then there'll be other words like aquari or aquafare, and I'll start to research those, or aramatena, and these will start coming in naturally. And when you start looking at this grid system and seeing these stargates, you start to think, okay, this is actually what I'm doing. I'm restructuring the DNA from microcosm to macrocosm, and this is how I've felt it in my reality. However, the other part that I've felt it, and this is even stronger of a resonance for me, is when I'm doing medicine work, it can get too much. The responsibility is a lot. It's big because we have karma and I have a responsibility. And so when it gets too technical, you're in the mental body. And you don't want to be in the mental body when you are holding space. You want to be in a neutralized space. And so I drop all of it. And I just come into the center point, our 0 point field. And I just forget everything I know. And I just sit as the humble, let's say it was Christ Jr., right? Or Buddha Jr., or the little me, as in what I mean by little me is the purest form of me, the childlike me. And I also know that that is the strongest and purest form. And when that is happening, these frequencies move through me that I can only describe as crystalline transmission. Crystalline transmission. And how I know that is because it is felt. It is felt through the body. It's like this, like such a crystalline energy that shatters all other overlays, for lack of a better word. And it's so, there's no doubt when it comes in. It's just this full transmission through the hara line. There's no mental body, there's no nothing. And it's coming from the purest space in the heart. And I really, really like this aspect of me experimenting with this outside of the mental body through my work, through my medicine work and my breath work, and really experimenting with this. And yeah, this is how I am experiencing it in my reality. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is, I mean, I've been, with you in spaces, physical and online, and I can feel the transmission. I can feel the power. I can, listen to you for hours. So I'm probably a little bit biased here in this very moment. I'm just also looking at the chat, and we'll see whether there's people who have put some questions. I know that there was a lady who had put up her hand, and I asked her, I think Mona was it, to put the question into the chat so we can answer it. But I can't see any question.
No,
I
neither
was
can I.
just about to share with everyone in the chat so that everyone sees it, that you also gifted a beautiful meditation on source connection. Maybe you want to share a few words about that while you're
Yes,
still here so that we can have your
beautiful,
explanation or your words with it. And I just shared it in the chat
beautiful,
for everyone who wants to get it. And we will also share
beautiful.
it in the email. So if you can't copy it now, don't worry, you will still receive it.
Beautiful, yes. Source connection or source orientation. I should have changed the word to orientation because how many layers and overlays do we need to move through to actually connect with source? Can we believe it when people say that, etc., etc.? So this meditation is really about elimination of stories, coming to a still point within all of your belief systems and coming to a space of an all-encompassing frequency, because that is what God is. It is everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the peaceful, the bliss, the chaos, the terror. It is all of it. And to stand as witness and observer to that in central points. So this is really what the meditation is about. My meditations are a guided meditation. They also hold quantum linguistics in it, which is the light language. I prefer to use this terminology because, again, there are overlays in many things within our spiritual community. Everything is being distorted at many points in time. And I would love feedback, or you love to give Danny feedback, or on the La Luma school page, or whatever it is, of how you felt, because it's meant to be a felt essence and a beingness. And I've been experiencing this over the last couple of days, speaking to a very, very highly conscious friend of mine who I feel is very much in the mental body. And so it's like these meditations allow us to really just drop in. So I'm very curious as to what everybody feels, because my previous meditation creations can send you in many different directions. But this one is very much simplified into this source field, is my feeling. So that's what I've created. And it's a 40-minute one, which is, I think, is not too long, not too short. So yes,
Thank you so much. I have one more question, and then I'm also on the, don't worry that I'm a little bit distracted because I'm
no
trying to
worries.
let the next speaker in, but I have one more, not even question, but I think something that you raised, and maybe many, because I saw there's also a few space holders in the participants list today. You were speaking just now about the question, when can we trust the connection to source? When can we trust someone saying, I received it from source? And I feel that many of the people who are speaking at the Global Summit are actually practicing, I want to say, at least, to be in this connection of source as much as we can be and share with the inspiration or with the transmission that we receive, right? So for people who are not as practiced and who are not familiar with this yet, so how would you encourage someone? Because my observation from my personal journey is as more as you connect yourself and you practice to connect yourself, as more you resonate with others and you can find the discernment in yourself. It's more feeling than knowing, and the
Yes.
trust also, from my perspective at least, the trust comes more within the body than within the mind of
Mm,
do I trust
correct.
this person? And not necessarily everybody trusts everyone, right? But
Yes.
maybe you can speak to that for just a moment and I'll try to get
Well, that's why I spoke in the beginning about tonal inflection with regards to listening to voice and things like that, because now with an AI reality, we might hear channels and information from things that are not even holding soul, right? But to also speak to your question, how do we trust that, is we've got to, or we are invited to really, really collaborate and co-create within that idea of the law of one. So we have been trained and programmed into perfectionism through our social media channels. If we are not looking like the perfect channel that is connected to source, that has no distortions, that is holding the codes of the eternal blah, 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 blah lineage, then we are failures and our businesses fail and our strategy within our competition as healers fails. And so what I'm alluding to here is when we are broken down, crying in the darkest pits of vulnerability, and chaos in our own personal distortion that we're clearing, is that not source also? Is that not already source? So I think to drop this overlay of perfectionism is perhaps the greatest way to stand in something that is honest. And so when you can begin to feel and perceive a person's frequency through a lens of, are they at least being honest with themselves? I prefer to read things in this manner rather than say, oh, wow, they've got the holy crown with the biggest set of spiritual data that I've ever seen, rather than an honest individual that is being so genuine in their expression. That to me is more spiritual than spiritual righteousness. So this is a beautiful overlay to observe. It's like, can you feel the authenticity in a person? And can they sit in their vulnerability within that without needing to be that source connected God almighty being? I think this is where we can observe and be very discerning, and it's probably the most useful and helpful tool for us out there.
Beautiful. Yeah, and it speaks very much to what you were just sharing with us, the coming back to our own source and the
Yes,
releasing of all the masks or of all the things that
yes,
we have put on ourselves. So to
yes,
be truly vulnerable, to be truly authentic, and to just express who we are.
yes.
So thank you so much, Brigitte. And
Thank
I
you.
managed to let Gideon come in. So we are here, the three of us now. It's so beautiful to see you, Gideon. And I know that you guys also know each other. So it's beautiful to have this bridge again, I love it. Thank you so much, Brigitte, for taking the time
Thank you.
coming here. There's no questions right now. If there's more questions coming in, I will definitely share them with you. And also we're going to try
Thank
to
you.
answer them. We're going to also share all the links in email, so you don't worry that you cannot grab them here maybe from the chat. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for coming today and sharing your wisdom and for offering so much of yourself to the world. And I
Thank
can
you,
just
Danny.
encourage everyone to join Brigitte in one of her physical sessions or also in the online container. It's really a gift for being here.
Thank you, Danny. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Gideon. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Hello, Danny. Thank you for having me here.
It's so beautiful that also the audio function, so everything's working beautifully. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I can see Gideon I want to share with the audience just a few words because Gideon has been one of the biggest encouragers for me in setting up this summit and in general setting up the Laulima School now, the community and everything. So whilst he's in South Africa and I'm traveling to Europe and other places, he's holding the space, I feel, continuously for Laulima. So I'm very, very grateful that you're also coming today, Gideon, and share some of your wisdom and some of your practices with everyone who's listening in or listening to the recording. And I don't want to share too much now because I want to not use too much of the time. You can take as much time as you need, and then we will follow up. I'm the last speaker today, so I'm happy to share a few minutes of my time to you because I will not use all the 30 minutes. So just take the time that you need. And welcome again, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Danny. I first want to put a shout out to Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for bringing us into the space, into ourselves, and being centered. And then thank you very much to Brigitte to show us the heights of what is possible. So I think building on that, I'm going to touch on some of the themes that Brigitte talks about, but I want to bring us down to earth. So the first thing I would like everybody to do is take your shoes off. Just take a moment, get yourself a glass of water, take your shoes off, and just arrive. You've been sitting for an hour now. I'm going to be chewing your ear for the next half an hour. So I'd like your full attention. So I'm investing in you straight away by saying, make sure that you have had at least 2 sips of water. There's mine. And make sure that you have your shoes off so you can feel the ground. And then to get us started, you can join in at any moment, of course. But let's rub our hands together. Let's just bring touch into our reality. I'm a tactile learner, so I like touching. So let's bring our hands together and just rub them together, and then feel what the difference is if you rub them together to if you rub them away from each other. Let's just do this, a little practical exercise. And when you feel that magnetism for some, heat for others, vibration for others, let's bring that closer to us and just feel our face with that new vibration on us. And we can put that hand anywhere. We can put it on our hearts. We can put it on our knees or our legs, on the back of our neck, anywhere that you feel like. Just bring the vibration into your hands. And if you lose the sensation, if you touch something, you feel you lose it, just bring it back to your hands and then put it somewhere. Feel it. Feel the glow of loving yourself. Right, so I'm talking about love, first of all, because love is the first value. Brigitte talked about values. Love is the first value that penetrated me, that overthrew me. I was young. That's part of my journey. I was fully in love, and then I was totally crushed. And I saw my own shadow for the first time, because I saw that I felt like my feeling was that I wanted to be the stalker of my love interest. And then I looked at myself and I said, no way, that's not who I am. I'm not satisfied with being that. So then I asked myself the question, what does this love that I feel mean? What is the meaning? What's the definition of love? And I grappled with that, and I searched for it, and I sought the highest Christ ideals about it. I read the description of what the attributes of love is. I really felt into it, because this was a deep word. It had meaning for me. I said it when I said it to my parents, and I felt it. I know this was a sensation I was experiencing, but I wanted to define it. And the definition I stumbled upon was that when I say I love you, I mean I want the best for yourself in your highest intention as you dictate that. If that then means that I'm not part of your life, that's okay. I still want you to excel, succeed, reach your potential. I want to be a supporting force in that. And that orientation really helped me in my whole life. It's put me on this journey that I'm on. Maybe I was on the journey already, but that was a critical moment for me. And I think as we want to evolve, as we want to grow, then finding the values that resonate with the issue that I'm having. I felt unloved. That's the issue I had. And then I explored the value of love and found my own resonance with it. And when I knew my own resonance with it, then it was easier to move on. I wasn't stuck in that binding system anymore of being a victim to a feeling that I had that I did not find the intellectual resonance with the heart resonance. So that brings me to something. It's called coherence. When our brain waves and our heart waves are in harmony with each other, we call it coherence. Or some people call it flow. An athlete, when he's running and he's fully expressing himself on the track, he's saying, I'm in flow. I can feel like time stops and I'm moving beyond everything. That is a flow state. So when our brains and our hearts agree, then we can create this coherence, and that flow state can empower us, can enhance us, can totally unlock who we are. So you might say, well, that's a bit of a hairy-fairy. How is my brain going to communicate and visually track my flow states? And I want to say to you, we have the tech. It's not my tech, but there is the tech available. If you look at the Heart Math Institute, they will put the electrodes on you. You can order them online, and you can see for yourself how much flow you're in, how much coherence you have. We live in such a wonderful age. We have the tech now to do almost anything we want to. This AI, for instance, that we're all a little bit scared of and all trying to maximize and learn and use, this AI for me is an exterior manifestation of a new level of consciousness. Right? When we use landlines, now I'm an old guy, I used to use landlines. When I phoned my parents, they would both pick up the phone because there's one in the bedroom and one in the dining room. And they both want to talk to me at the same time. We had a three-way conversation back then. And if I wanted to talk to one of them alone, I'd say, put the phone down, please, Mum. I just want to talk to my dad. So we went through those experiences, and that was one layer of a collective connection into which many people were excluded. And then we got into cell phones, and suddenly many more people were included, and we stopped using one connection point in the house. Suddenly everybody had their own individual connection point. And also people leapfrogged. Where they didn't have a phone in their house in the past, suddenly they could buy a mobile phone, take it everywhere with them. They leapfrogged the technology. Of course, our phones have gone through generations. I don't know if Apple's now at number 17. I think I'm still stuck at number 12. But I can leapfrog my Apple into the latest version anytime I want. And now that we have AI, it is another evolution of thought. Before, when we can just search Google and have an idea, now when I search Google, the AI gives me the answer first. My son asked me today, what is masala? And I knew it was a mix of spices. I knew different masalas have different names. But I could type in what is masala into Google, and it gives me the history of masala. The AI tells us all. Yes, I can show my son. Okay, here is what I said. Yes, and there is a bit more. And did you know that they had Durban masala? And what makes it Durban masala? I said to her, it's probably the chili, because their curry is hot, and we like it. We like hot food, so that's good. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about resonance. Maybe a curry will turn up for me tonight because I'm resonating with curry right now. Resonance is everywhere in our lives. Sure, I want my brain and my heart to be in resonance, because then as a being, I am connected, I am in flow. But I also want to be in resonance with my son. So I have to do exercises with my son. Every morning we sit, like how many 17-year-olds that sit in the morning for half an hour with their dad? I feel it's a real win. Okay, so I found resonance with my son by communicating with him from this place. And he can recognize it because he has been in my environment repeatedly